Hi, boys and girls. Today we are going to continue revising our formal letter to our expert that we have chosen to send our letter to. And today we are going to be revising for word choice. So an important part of revising our content is that we are adding details and replacing words that don't add anything to our writing. So as you revise today, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, what boring or overused words have I used? Do my words appeal to the senses, so our 5 senses? And how can I add energy to my writing? All right, so have I used boring words? How can I appeal to the 5 senses? And how can I add energy to my writing? We are going to be revising for those 3 things. And we're doing that by adding or taking away boring words, adding interesting words, okay? So let's look at some examples here of how to strengthen your word choice. So we have a sentence here. It says, all of these animals are part of the food chain and each has a job. Well, that's not a bad sentence, but we can add things to this sentence to make it more interesting. So when I read the first example, or when I read this first example, the phrases are part of the food chain and has a job doesn't help me see, hear, or feel anything. They aren't very descriptive and they aren't interesting to me as a reader. So what I want to do is I want to come up with more specific words to replace those phrases with. And you see here the brown, the pink, and the, or I guess purple and blue phrases. And then if we come down here to the example after the revision has happened, we see what has been changed. So let's listen to this sentence. All of these animals interact in a complex web of relationships, and each has its own place in the system. Ooh, that's interesting to read, right? So the phrase are a part of was replaced with interact in. And we can use a thesaurus to really help us get more interesting words into our writing. So I have linked a thesaurus in the lesson on Google Classroom. So if you want to go back and go open that thesaurus to help you improve your word choice in your writing, you can do that, okay? So then the purple phrase, the food chain. So this writer kind of just defined what the food chain is, a complex web of relationships. Ooh, more interesting, right? The food chain, a complex web of relationships. And then lastly, the phrase has a job was replaced with has its own place in the system. So we can see that just these small, boring phrases can be oomphed up and made more interesting with some use of some better, more exciting words that appeal to our senses, right? So let's look at another example. Moray eels are skinny. They find places to hide in little spaces of the reef. All right. Not a bad sentence, but just a little boring. We can zhuzh it up and give some more detail and do some better words or select some better words to use within that sentence. So moray eels have slender bodies. Instead of are skinny, have slender bodies that are perfectly adapted for navigating the narrow nooks and crannies of the reef. So instead of find places, the author says that they are perfectly adapted, meaning that they've adapted to their environment and can fit in those small places because they have those slender bodies. Then the last phrase, hide in little spaces of the reef. So little spaces. Instead, the author said narrow nooks and crannies. And instead of hide, they said navigating, right? So they navigate the narrow nooks and crannies of the reef. A much better sentence than what it was before. So your assignment today is go back, reread your formal letter and see where you can add some of these wow words or phrases to improve your writing. Again, I have linked a thesaurus in your assignment. So if you'd like to use that thesaurus, then you can go use that to help you get some better word choice for your writing.